Welcome to this edition of When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, a discussion of sustainable living and what that means to you and me. I'm Jay Warmke.
And I'm Annie Warmke.
And today we're going to talk about aging sustainably, or all this crap is just getting old. So
I guess it is.
It does get
past
old.
It's past old.
Getting old is
But it's
getting
not
old.
about getting old. That's the crap. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Right. So we were preparing for this, about all of the weird messages that our society gives us about getting old.
Okay, weird maybe to you and me, but I think they're too common and normal to everybody else, which is what makes it feel so icky.
So what is it? What is that message as you've interpreted it?
Okay. Well, first of all, that I'm supposed to be nothing to anybody except a cha-ching machine, an ATM machine for insurance companies and the U.S. government. I'm old, so I cannot make decisions for myself, and nor can I continue to be productive as a person. I'm ugly. I'm icky. My teeth are going to fall out, and I'm not going to be able to have sex. What's left?
These are lovely messages.
It's the truth. And it started, just hear me
And you're going to
out.
be a Walmart greeter, right?
No, I am. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the other thing, because you got to keep working now because you can't afford to be old. But it didn't start because I turned old enough to draw Social Security. It started at age 50 when you chose to be kind of ornery, not that you would ever do that, and tease me about turning 50 because I got something in the mail from AARP reminding me that I was getting old and I needed to be protected and defended because I was getting old. You know what the good news was? One day you turned 50 and you got the same letter.
But I was actually much younger when that happened. So
how's that work?
I don't know. So anyway, but we hear this. We've been on this rant periodically about the idea of the American dream. And I think the idea that people have as far as getting old, there seems to be this cultural message of saying, I want to get to an age where I can retire and then do nothing, which seems like a very bizarre message. I mean, this is something from our discussions when we're talking about this that feels so odd, that your whole goal, your whole mission in life is to get to a point where you can do nothing.
Well, here's the problem. That may well be true. I mean, I see it all, I hear it all the time. But the problem is that nothing in our culture tells us how to be old. It tells us how to be sick. It tells us how to not be productive. It tells us how to stop acting like we should have a voice. But it does not tell us how to be old.
Well, it seems that's fairly common. All of the main things the really important things our society never actually prepares you for, like how to decide upon a career, or how to have children, how to get married.
I think we know how to have children.
Okay, well, how to
that part happens naturally.
How to intentionally
how to
have
prevent
children.
it. Now there's another
All
story.
Right, that's a different podcast. But anyway.
Oh, come on. No, it's not.
But
because here's the thing. The things that are really vital, we are not told how to do it properly.
That was kind of my point.
Okay. But getting old is perhaps the most important thing we're going to do in life. What we contribute from that point in life where we are acknowledging, yes, our bodies are changing enough that maybe we have to do things a little differently. You know, I frankly resent the fact that people repeatedly say, oh, Annie, you're getting old. And you're going to have to...
I'll try not to say that as much.
That would be good and very safe on your part. But the problem is they're saying you can't continue to be a goat herder, or you can't continue to work at a pace like you work at. You know, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm trying to live my life. I have goals in my life, and I don't see how I can suddenly come to a point where those goals aren't valuable anymore or even important to me.
So that lays us into the concept of, you know, we're all going to get older. We're all, and I hate to break this to everybody, we're going to die at some point.
Yeah.
So it seems realistic to plan for aging and to plan to die. Those
Well,
are
we
things
don't talk about those things in this culture.
Okay, but I'm going to. We're going to talk about getting older.
You're dangerous.
So I know you're really big on plans. You're big on let's make plans. And actually, I do recall back in the late 1800s when we were in our 20s, and we talked about getting old. We talked about planning to be older
when we were in our 20s. Yes, we did. Mm-hmm. And we actually laid out what we would do. And you know what's really weird? We're doing it.
Yeah, but old age to me was like 40. So no, actually.
Yes, I remember you saying that and being quite a little smart.
No, we've been pretty forthcoming on this, and part of the plan, as I remember it, and it may be faulty, but that we were going
old
to
age does that to you,
right? We were going to do all these things that people often hold for retirement, such as travel and do those.
Raising our grandchildren.
Well, raising our grandchildren. That wasn't really planned for. But anyway, do those when we're younger, and then try and set up a lifestyle as we age that requires physical activity.
Well, the other thing we did was we decided when we got into, at least when I got into my late 30s, I said, look, I miss Ohio. I miss my life in the country, being a farm woman. And I realized that as I age, I need to get back to that in some way. And so we, early on in our lives, purchased land. And we weren't even sure. We just thought it was going to be a retreat. But we started using that as our bunker, as you called it, our savings account. And we developed that. So at some point in life, we were able to fall back onto that when we decided to make some major changes in our careers and stuff.
Sure. And that was our plan. Now, other people may have different plans. It might be, I want to sail around the world, or I want to do something else. I want to get into woodworking. I want to do whatever it is I want to do. But it seems realistic that when you're younger, you should begin anticipating that and beginning the plan. And I think what's proven to be the case, at least for me, is the idea of travel is less and less appealing as I get older. You know, we get into these, I want my comfortable pillow. I want my routine.
That's you.
I know.
That's you.
Me,
you want your comfortable pillows.
All right, there we go. But so the idea of when we're younger, we could sleep in a train station or sleep on the ground or deal with those things.
On bar stools in an airport.
Yeah, those are always fun. and it wasn't because we were drinking.
No, we didn't even have anything to drink.
So those are the inconveniences and the discomfort that are associated with traveling. And I think most people don't really factor that in to their retirement plans. I think most people have this fantasy, I am done working, I'm going to travel, I'm going to see the world, I'm going to do all these things that I put off for 45 years while I was working at a job that I didn't much care for.
There's the key. The done working part means I'm leaving something I don't want to do anymore and not replacing it with something of value. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest message that, and we just need really to say, look, we don't accept that anymore. That we want to be valuable in this culture. And so we don't have to be relegated to travel to busy ourselves, because we have a lot. I mean, when I look at all the things that are needed at schools today, I wonder the reason why people are sitting at home saying, I'm lonely, or I don't have anything to do, or watching television all day, when those kids are waiting for someone to read with them and to care about them. And there are millions of jobs out there. I know people have to work. A lot of people, when they get to retirement age now, have to work in order to make ends meet. But there are ways to do that as well. I mean, it's a revolution to think that maybe I have some skill sets that I could go out and do what I want to. I've got some Social Security, but I need a few $100s more. I don't have to be relegated to be the Walmart greeter. I have stuff to contribute. And the cultural message is we do not. We are not of value because we are not producing, and yet we're told not to produce. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So we got to have a plan, Jay, and I know I say this every single podcast, but to have a plan is an act of revolution. It's thumbing your nose at a culture that says if you just don't plan, you can be in enough debt that you'll never get anywhere in life. And I would say that part of our plan early on was to not be in debt. And that helped us to be able to get to where we wanted to be when we needed to make major changes in our lives.
Well, I think another thing that we have experienced and I think anticipated, but it's still a frustration to go through, is the institutions of aging that come at you. Like I'm thinking about Social Security and Medicare and those kind of things that put you into a bureaucracy where you are expected to be a certain way and behave a certain way. And for anarchists like yourself, that's
I am
always,
not an anarchist, but I'm not
right.
going to be told how to take care of myself.
As opposed to anarchy, right?
No, I'm not. So here's the thing. I don't really want to be caught up in a healthcare model that does not meet my needs. And yet I find myself in that situation. And so I came to you and I said, look, I can't do this. I'm scared. I'm scared of a model that says I have to be a certain way. And when I had to sign up for Medicare, they said, well, you can't just come and go and do what you want to. If you're in the hospital and you decide you don't want to be there, well, maybe you won't be allowed to leave. Well, that just made me wig out, or I couldn't go to the chiropractor because I needed to. It was crazy. But I said, we have to understand what is it we're going to do when there's that point in life where I can't go on. There's something wrong and I'm going to die, or I don't have the ability to continue in my life. Having a plan, then I don't really need to think so much about what's Medicare going to do to me or not do to me, or what's Social Security going to do, or what kind of fast track do I have to be on to get into the assisted living facility at $4,000 a month. I didn't work all my life to be in those places and eat that food and live that way. So, I can't do it.
So this is a bit like when we talk about disaster preparedness. It's saying,
that would be right.
The time to deal with these things is not in the middle of a crisis.
No.
The time to deal with them is when you're rational and thinking these things through.
Or when Medicare tells you stuff.
When you're fairly rational and trying to deal with these things. And that's the moment to say, all right, when this happens, because things are going to happen.
Yeah, but I have a health care plan. I know exactly how I need to take care of myself, and I know what I need to do in an emergency, and so do you. I don't want to be told by somebody who doesn't know anything about me that I have to comply to something that doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm. And there's not only pressure from the institutions, and we've talked about pressure from the government,
family,
the medical, family.
Oh
Family's a big area because
really
people
bad.
Try and put you into this box, and
telling me I'm getting old and I need to stop doing stuff, or I need to go to a medical doctor because something's wrong because my healthcare professional can't help me. It's just crazy. Or I just should eat whatever I want because I'm going to die anyway.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, time is marching on. And at this moment, I just want to take a break here to remind you that you are listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke, reminding you once again, it is the end of the world as we know it.
And thank God today. I'm really thanking God today.
There you go. So the end. And, we talk about these things like, I guess in absolutes, it's the end of the world. Well, that's good. You're getting older. It's all sounding fairly bleak. But why does that sound bleak? I mean, I remember I worked for a boss years and years ago when I was a young whippersnapper, and he was this old ancient guy in his 50s, and he used to tell me like almost every day, "Oh man, don't get old." And I hear this so often. It's like, "Oh, don't get old," and I always used to just quit back. Well, it beats the alternative, and it really does. I mean, what is the alternative to aging?
Well, I think, first of all, it does come back to planning. So in our lives, we've had a 5-year and a 10-year plan, and then suddenly we got to this point in our life where it wasn't an age. It was just sort of a sense when we were doing our planning and saying, planning feels differently now. Mm-hmm. We're thinking about this differently because if we're thinking 10 years out, well, wait a minute. that's kind of crazy. Let's think 2 years or 4 years. Let's think about the long-range plan we've had about publishing books and writing books and all that, which we're doing, but we're going to do it differently now. And let's think about maybe there are some things that we want to do now that we might have put off until later. And that's not because either one of us are going to die or anything like that. We're just saying, look, it's not the same planning process. We have to start thinking about things differently. Not that we're going to be less productive or less engaged or unhappy or sitting all the time. That isn't about that. It's just saying, let's be realistic about body changes, idea changes, things that maybe I have wanted to do that I didn't do. I don't have any of that, but if I did, this would be the time I would want to interject it into my life plan.
Well, I know in my consciousness anyway, something recently has crept in, which is this idea of, you know what, there are not as many tomorrows as there were yesterdays. You know,
you don't know. You're a young whippersnapper.
There you go. You never know. Yeah, I'll live to be 135 or something.
You'll miss me.
So, but it's a weird realization. It's this weird thing of actually truly believing that you're mortal. You know, I think everybody comes to this at some point, maybe, hopefully, where you just say...
No, they don't. They don't talk about it.
Well, but they never say, okay, literally there will be a time of non-existence. And of course, that gets very, very to the heart of all sorts of, you know, religions and all of that, which is a place I don't want to tread into at the moment. But it is definitely going to be different. So...
But it's different before that, and that's what I'm talking about. And I find it comforting to be able to know I understand where I want to be and how I'm going to get there. I saw a film with Scott and Helen Nearing. Yeah. And it's a story of really the end of their life. And that film documentary really, really brought home the point that I have complete control as long as I have any senses left. Of how I'm going to live to the end. And I think perhaps the most powerful thing we do is how we live until we're going to die from this point on in life. How we spend our money, what we invest in with our youth in our world, things we write, things we say, things we use. I think all of that is really powerful because what we're doing is teaching the next generation how to be old and how to die gracefully. And that's where I find that comfort. It's like, okay, it's going to happen.
Well, and I think we've all seen people who try and deny the fact they're getting older, and they end up coming off kind of silly, you know, kind of a parody of themselves, trying to be young when obviously they're not young, or trying to behave in a way that's kind of odd. And that's not what we're talking about.
No, but there is a lot of pressure because there's real rejection for being old, that you don't look pretty anymore. But what if we never looked pretty? I mean, hey, we might look better when we're old. But I think there is this real challenge of changing what the culture's telling us, which is a bold-faced lie about old age, and creating our own definition of what it means to be old, not just as a culture, but what does it mean to be old for you, because I love you and I want to honor what that means to you. And what does it mean to me? And once I've defined that, then, hey, I'm good to go, you know, because I know what to expect.
Well, one of the things I wanted to touch on here during this discussion of diminishing life expectancy here is that...
Oh, that's such a nice way to put it. Not.
You're right. So I'm thinking... you know, we touched on earlier about people have this vision of I'm going to work to a certain age, I'm going to retire, and then I'm going to do what I want to do. And of course, when we lived in Florida for so many years, we see this kind of under a microscope of so many people whose constant everyday ordeal is how to fill their day with distraction.
Well, I think you'll see that anywhere you go if you go to the right places.
If you look close enough.
That's
but there,
right.
it's concentrated. It's like a pond after the water is mostly evaporated. Everything's kind of concentrated together. That is a pretty good description of Florida, actually. Kind of a pond where most of the water is evaporated.
I'm sure they're not happy to hear that.
But I'm thinking about this, that the people I admire, the people I see who are aging in a way that I admire, they're doing what they've done or doing what they want to do. It's not about leisure. It's about still being productive, still pursuing a passion, whatever that passion happens to be. And to me, the ideal of retirement would be pursue those things that we still want to pursue without feeling a pressure that you have to earn money from it.
Yeah, well, that would be a luxury, and a lot of people aren't there. Right. But I remember hearing Frank Lloyd Wright's story. He's the famous architect, and he thought when he was 72, which, when you were 72 in his day, that was pretty old, that his career was over. But he designed and built more than 400 buildings after that because his career was revived. And of those 400 buildings, 400 of them have roofs that leak. Okay, but that doesn't matter. That's not the part that
That's
made me feel good.
That's my personal obsession with
But
Frank Lloyd
it
Wright.
made me feel like the way I was feeling already, and that was that I have come full circle in my life. And the work that I have done as a young woman has kind of collectively come back together again. And so I've created this full circle, and I'm doing such interesting things. I mean, every day is fascinating to me, and it's because it's a collection of the work that I've done over the last 40 years. So it's vital that I have that to stand on and that I can see it's something that's a tool and not just something I'm just going to throw away or put in a file drawer somewhere. It's really about coming to the end of something and then saying, hey, how can I live off the rewards of this work that I've done to keep doing more of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've talked about that where when we've come up with a new idea, at this stage of our professional development and our physical aging, right, since we're talking about aging, you're not starting from zero again. You have a history upon which to build.
Yes.
And, for some people that history may be negative. I don't know. But if hopefully you have accomplished certain things that you can build upon and do the next thing that you find interesting.
Well, everybody has skills, even cooking skills.
But does everybody have a passion about something?
No, that's about self-actualization, and that's a rare thing in our culture. Very, very few people have actually realized self-actualization.
Well, tapping into the counselor of you, speaking of your history, how would you, is there even a way of motivating that passion in someone, to say, all right, if you could do anything you want to do, what would that be?
Well, first of all, we have to feel safe enough to try.
Yeah.
And that when you look at Maslow's hierarchy, you have to understand that safety is pretty important, and we don't have that very strong in our culture, a sense of safety. And we have to feel safe in our environment and also safe within ourselves to be able to even reach out and try to grasp what that means. And I think it's really difficult.
Mm-hmm. So we get back to that one problem of relearning behaviors that have been learned over a lifetime.
But we can change that. We can change it.
I saw It's a Wonderful Life. I know things change like that.
But the thing about the safety issue, we do live in a culture that perpetuates this myth of how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
And that then creates this mindset that we're not safe to try. But we can change our brain. I've talked about that before.
You need to accumulate in order to be safe.
Right.
You got to pile up things around you.
We have a big enough wall and a big enough pile of crap.
A big enough bank account. Well, it's funny. I was talking to my my baby brother about some of these things, and we're talking about we all make comparisons of ourselves, in comparison with our culture, with other people. And that's one source of dissatisfaction in a lot of folks. They look at other people and they get a sense that they're doing better than perhaps they really are.
Better in that they have more stuff?
Yeah.
Or they're happier?
When you're comparing yourself to another, you feel somehow wanting that these other people, and because you're only seeing the caricature of their life, not the reality of it. But where I was going with this is I was thinking about the difference between me or you or the average person who will be listening to this and Bill Gates. I'll use Bill Gates because he's
very rich.
Very rich. The difference between us and Bill Gates is razor thin. right? He has a house, we have a house. He has a car, we have a car.
His
He
heart
has enough
beats
to eat.
just like yours.
Yeah. I mean, we're probably happier. He's not. I don't know. Maybe he is. But the difference between the two of us is so tiny. Yet the difference between us and someone living on the street is the Grand Canyon. So you mentioned Maslow's hierarchy. Once you've reached a certain level of within that pyramid, differences are minute.
I don't think there's a big difference between us and the people who are homeless. That is so thin, it could happen to you in a heartbeat.
Okay, but physically, safety, comfort, all of those things, to me anyway, there's a big gulf. There's a big gulf between.
There's
that's
a whole nother program, Jay.
All right,
what to say?
I'm
going to be good.
You're giving me a look. I'm thinking like I'm making a wise point, and you're looking at me like, "Oh, my child, that's so sad what you're saying."
It is. But I'm going to be good.
But I was making it like a positive thing, right?
I know it. Okay. Well, just to say that we all have insecurities and lack confidence. I don't care how much we have in life. It's how we view things. And the brain has specific ways that it carries out the stories in your life and the things that you tell yourself. And we can change that. You know, I've talked about this before, that that message of being insecure or afraid or lacking confidence is a little electrical line that goes through your brain, and you've got a little story, like a home movie that you play about it when something goes on or a smell brings back a memory. And you can change those things by telling yourself to shut up and then give yourself another thought. And that's how we can. You asked me about changing.
I know, but we started off talking about aging, and now we're into
old
self-actualization and mental health.
But
right?
if we want to have a happy old age, one of the things we have to do is to try to heal some of the crap that we're dealt because we are getting old, some of the crap we were dealt as kids, and a lot of the crap that we're dealt from our culture because they're lying to us at every turn about how life really works. So I think we owe it to ourselves to figure out how to change some of those messages if we want to have a happy old age or a happy young age.
To kind of get over it, move forward.
I don't know if you ever get over it, but that's okay. It's how you tell yourself about it.
Mm-hmm. So if you had to sum it up, okay, since we've only got about 2 minutes here.
Sum it up.
Sum up. How do I age happily in 2 minutes or less? Come on. Okay, go.
Well, I think, first of all, you have a plan.
Right.
And you plan for how you're going to be old. So one thing you could do is say, I'm going to leech off my kids and friends. Mm-hmm. And
that's why you had them in the first place.
That's right. Or you could say, I'm going to do something different from that. Maybe I'm going to live in a group with other people and not in some assisted living, but whatever. Be generous with yourself. Think about how it would work. I'm going to have a plan of how I'm going to have my leisure, my transportation, my community, my tribe, my spiritual practice, all the stuff you should be doing when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you really need to do in your old age.
Okay, well, you've been listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. We want to thank Adam Rich, our Emmy-winning producer, and thank you for spending just a little bit of time with us. And as your grandmother probably told you, the secret to a happy and sustainable life is...
Play nice with others, Jay. Clean up your own mess, and don't be homeless, please. And eat your vegetables.
All right, eat the vegetables. Till next time.
Mother Earth will sing, and her children will be healed. Come on, see the morning glory blossom in the night. Know the stars are dancing in twilight. Soon we'll be together, all will be revealed. Mother Earth will sing, and her children will be healed.
You can find more information on living sustainably in our unsustainable world at bluerockstation.com.